And hello again, and while Barney here has a well-earned rest after a long walk, we can look at progress on the Ducati. And as you can see, I've managed to remove the rear wheel in preparation for its new tyre, and so far I've bought a pair of AM26 Avon tyres, front and back, standard sizes, that is to say I think 110 on the back and 100 on the front, both of course 18 inches, and I've also bought a pair of new inner tubes. I mean, these inside here might be alright, but given they're probably about 30 years old, I think it's a good investment to change them. And looking at the rear disc here, this is not a brand new disc. This is the old disc that's been rebuilt many years ago by Brancato Engineering. And what he did was, he split it all down, had the disc ground, and then it's been plated, sort of flash plated, with a thin coat. I think it's cadmium plating, I think. And that will obviously rub off the first time you apply the brakes, but that's okay. It was just done to protect the iron discs while it's in storage or whatever. So obviously I've not used the bike, and that's why this very fine surface is still there. But once the bike's in use again, of course, this cadmium plating will soon be removed by the brake pads. And here we can see some masking tape that I've used on the swing arm to try and protect its finish from the chain as I grapple to get the rear wheel out of the bike. And that brings me to a problem I've got with the finish on this frame. Now, it's not twin pack and it's not powder coat, it's enamel, as per the factory spec back in the day. And the problem I've got is, it's incredibly delicate. It chips so easily, and yeah, it's nothing like I expected. And had I known it was so delicate, I probably wouldn't have gone ahead and gone for enamel. And it turns out that in the time between the bike being built and me coming along and having it re-enameled, there's been a change in the quality of enamel paint. And that change is that it can no longer have lead in it, because of course lead's very dangerous. And the problem is that it was the lead that gave the enamel paint its tough qualities. And so now without the lead, I'm afraid it's incredibly delicate. And had I known that, I would have probably just gone for twin pack rather than going for enamel. But you live and learn, and maybe one day I might strip the whole bike down again and have this frame refinished in twin pack. And a second and pretty obscure point concerns these swing arm clamps. Now there are 4 of them to either side, and yeah, nothing surprising about them at all, except for the fact that, and no one tells you this, they're not all the damn same. The inners are a little bit thicker than the outers, particularly on the brake side. Now, if you don't know that, and you put them back onto the swing arm in the wrong order, guess what? Your swing arm doesn't clamp up right, and the brake side's a bit loose. Now, don't ask me how I knew that, because of course I made that mistake and I couldn't figure out what on earth I'd done wrong. It took me a long time to work out what had happened. And the annoying thing is, they're not marked in any way, you know, there's no sort of markings on them anywhere, and the difference is very, very slight. It's probably about half a mil or a mil in this part here, so it's very easy to get them mixed up. But as I say, if you get them mixed up, then I'm afraid your rear wheel won't bolt up correctly. So that's something to be wary of if you own an old beveled head like me. Anyway, moving on then. So I've got the new rear tyre on the wheel, and that went on okay. However, getting the old tyre off this wheel was not so easy. Apparently it just wouldn't come off without a huge amount of force, and the bike shop were a bit concerned about cracking this rim. The reason being that the tyre was so old, it was hard and very difficult to remove. So in the end they had to resort to putting the whole wheel in a tyre warmer used by racers, left it in there for a few hours, warmed up the tyre, and that helped them to get that old tyre off. So that's done now, but before I refit it to the bike, I've got a couple of things to do first. I'm polishing these alloy pieces before they go back on the bike. I mean, they're not too bad, but they can always use a bit of a polish. This one here, this bracket for the rear brake, is a little bit worse for wear. It's got some damage here, look, so I can get rid of that. Some very fine wet and dry sandpaper, and yeah, repolish, and it should be looking pretty good before these go back on the bike. Okay, so there's the rear wheel back on the bike, and you may notice that I've not fitted the chain yet to the rear sprocket, and that's because it was a real struggle to get it in there, and I was a bit worried about scratching the paintwork on the swing arm with that chain. However, the good news is it's a split link chain, you can see it there, and that means I can take it apart, wrap it around the sprocket, and then refit a new split link, and we should be good to go. I've also polished up all these alloy pieces here, including the rear brake support bracket here. You can't really see it, but it's nice and polished, or it was before I covered it in my oily fingerprints. So now let's move on to the front wheel. Okay, so you find me now removing the front wheel off the bike very carefully, because the bike is now supported by this front plat stand, which isn't that secure, and in fact I'm quite surprised it fits the forks, because this is designed for a much more modern bike. So I didn't think it would fit, but it does. Not particularly securely, so I don't want to knock the bike. I want to get this wheel off the bike and off to the bike shop straight away, and not leave this bike here kind of looking a bit risky, a little bit delicate, and if the dog walked past it and knocked it, God knows what would happen. So yeah, I need to get that to the bike shop now, get the tyres changed and get this front wheel back on the bike in about an hour or so. However, before the front wheel goes back on the bike, I've just been looking at this front wheel spindle, and I can't say I'm happy with it, because it's got some corrosion here where it protrudes out of the side of the forks. And to fix that, I could get the whole thing blasted and replated. I think this might be nickel plated or cadmium plated, I'm not sure. But the problem with that is it takes such a long time. I mean, my experience with platers is they always spend, or take rather, you know, double or 3 times the amount of time they say they're going to take. And I could be without this spindle for weeks or months, so that's not really a good plan. So instead, what I've done is I've taken the measurements of this fairly simple spindle, and I'm going to have it replicated in stainless steel. Lister, my friend who owns a machine shop, is going to do that for me as a bit of a favour. And in time I would also like to have the rear spindle replicated in stainless too, but that will have to wait. Now, before any experts tell me that, oh, you shouldn't use stainless steel to make a wheel spindle because its fatigue life, or rather fatigue limit, is lower than mild steel, I would just say these things are so immensely over-engineered, and the limit of stainless steel is still far, far, far in excess of what's required for a wheel spindle. I think I should be pretty safe. Yeah, so I'm not sure when that'll be made, in a few weeks' time I guess, but when it is, I'll swap it over, and yeah, I don't have to worry about corrosion anymore. It also means that the whole front end is stainless steel, the spindle, the nut, and also the wheel spacers, they're all stainless steel. And that also means that I don't have to worry about galvanic corrosion, where you get corrosion where you're mixing together different metals. Yes, that's just a little improvement I can make, and I don't need to worry about rusting spindles anymore. And another task is to buy a new battery, given that this one here is about 25 years old. Well, then again, perhaps not, because this battery has never been filled with acid, and I'm just wondering if it's going to be okay or not. I mean, I've looked online, I can't see any information that says yay or nay, so I've no idea how long a lead acid battery should last if it's not been filled with acid. If it had been filled, then clearly it's toast within a few years. But this one, who knows? And if it works, fine, I've saved myself the cost of a new battery, and if it doesn't, well, I've not lost anything, have I? So I'm going to take this off and take it to my local bike shop and have it filled with acid, and we'll see how it retains charge. This parcel has just arrived in the post, and in it are some parts for the Ducati. And what we have here are the rebuild kits for the 3 Brembo brake calipers, and of course also the front and rear master cylinders. And actually, oddly enough, it's not from a Ducati specialist, but it's from a Guzzi specialist called Gutsy Bits in Huddersfield. And I've used them before for my own Guzzi, and the reason why I've used these guys is because they were cheaper than going to a classic Ducati specialist. So that's something worth knowing if you're in the market for some classic parts for Ducatis or indeed Guzzis. Altogether, this lot cost me £108, and not cheap, but then again cheaper than buying brand new calipers and so on. And in fact, they do stock brand new gold line calipers. I did check them out, and they're about £200 plus VAT each. So nice though they are, I think that will have to wait another day. Anyway, these can now go off and be used to rebuild my parts. And now here we are the next day, and I've just got a call from the bike shop telling me that they had to hacksaw off the front tyre from the wheel to get it off because it was so old and hardened. But I can pick it up tomorrow and get it back on the bike, which would be great. But in the meantime, I need to gain access to underneath the tank, and so the seat and the tank have to be removed from the bike. And there we have it. And I'm not surprised to find it's pretty damn dusty and dirty underneath here after such a long time being in the house. And I did have to cut the fuel lines on both cars to get the tank off. And that's because access is quite difficult with the tank in place and also with the fairing in place. And I didn't want to remove the fairing at this time. And the reason why I wanted to remove the tank in the first place is not just to get all this muck off the bike, but because I need access to these things here. These are the coils. Because as I recall, 25 years ago, when I refitted the coils on the whole wiring loom, I noticed a problem with one of the coils. And that is that one of the low tension wires, as it goes into the coil, had broken off. And it had broken off right where it goes into the resin of the coil. So a very difficult thing to fix. So there was only a few strands of wire sticking out. And so what did I do? Well, I did my best and ended up gluing them together with some glue, which wasn't a good idea at the time, but needs must. And I also remember doing that because I always knew, oh, that's not going to last very long. So I wanted to come back after 25 years and actually do a proper fix on that coil. But I can't remember which one it was. If it's left or right, I've no idea. So they'll have to come out and I can inspect both of them and find the problem. These are Nippon Denso coils from the late 70s, early 80s, and not exactly common. However, I was kind of hoping to find the code number on these coils, and I could try and look up on the internet if maybe this coil had been used on a more common bike, maybe a Honda or a Yamaha or something like that, and so I can source a new one. However, I've not found anything yet, and yeah, I'm not sure if they are still available. Yeah, so that's the next thing I've got to do. But before then, I think I need to give it a good old clean, because look at the state of these cables and so on. They're all incredibly filthy. Look at the frame's just so covered in dust and muck and God knows what else. Yeah, so I need to work out if I can take all that out without taking off the fairing. And right now, I don't think I can. And so I think maybe removing these coils and fixing that problem may have to wait for a later video. And finally, a quick update. I'm just back from the bike shop where I had my 25-year-old battery filled with acid, and I'm told just to leave it to vent for a while before trying to charge it up. But it seems it may well be okay. There's no shelf life apparently on unfilled batteries, so with a bit of luck, fingers crossed, it should charge up okay and I can use it on the bike once again. And I've got the front wheel back on the bike with the new Avon tyre, and no, this tyre is not on the wrong way round. These tyres can be fitted either on the front or the back of the bike, and when it's on the front, the tread pattern goes this way. Yeah, so that's fine. And next, I'm just getting ready to remove this fairing lower from the bike. I'm taping up the edges to prevent it from cracking or getting scratched as I manoeuvre this fairing off the bike. It's quite tricky to do because it's got to come below the bike and out. So doing that on your own is a bit tricky, particularly when it's against the wall, but needs must. What else? I'm doing that because I need access to the coils, and also because I can then get at the engine, give it a good clean, a good polish, and drop the oil that's in it and fit some new oil and a filter, which I can't do with the fairing in place. But all that will have to wait until part 3 of the series. And so, until then, thanks for watching and cheers.